This is the Mobile Tech Podcast, brought to you by worldpodcasts.com. Now here's your host, Tech Girl, Miriam Joie.
Brought to you by Mint Mobile. Stay tuned for a special offer at the end of the show. Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Joie, and today is Thursday, May 9th, 2024, and I've got the lovely Nirav Gondia here with me all the way from the UK. Hi, Nirav, how are you?
Darling, I'm delightful. How are you?
Fantastically well, as it were. Apple happened this week, so it's kind of exciting. Exciting in many ways, good and bad. I also think, we cannot pass over and forget the Google Pixel 8a that was announced this week. I'm waiting for my device. It's very weird how they did this, right? Like, it looks like they just didn't even tell the media.
Well, you said we shouldn't pass over and forget, but let's have a little bet. How long until Google passes over and forgets that it even made a Pixel 8a? I give it 3 weeks.
Possibly, but it's only the 8A, as long as they support it like they say for 7 years. We'll get to that. But the bottom line is those are the main pieces of news this week. We also have to talk, obviously, about a bunch of other little items that are kind of hot and exciting. There's a POCO event in Dubai I'm going to coming up that I'm sure we're going to see a phone or two here. There's some rumors around that. There's a bunch of other little things. So iPads, man, like 2 years it's taken. I personally, look, I'm not an iPad person. I want to put it up front. So I can't really be judgy about it too much. I know that people who use an iPad love it. I respect that. I think it's a great tool. I always make fun that it's not a real computer with a real OS, but I know that's not true, especially for creative work, like if you professionally draw or you're a video editor, even Final Cut Pro, or if you're like a photographer, or if music. All the music creation tools on iPad are incredible. I think way better than what you can get on a MacBook in some way. So I'm not here to say this is bad, but I'm like, do you think, other than the upcoming AI wave for which this M4 is really designed, do you think anyone right now with an iPad Air M1 needs to upgrade to the iPad Air M2? Do you really need that other than the OLED, do you think the Pros are really a meaningful upgrade?
I think we should first separate these.
Okay.
Let's talk Air.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I don't think Apple could have launched just the 13 on its own. True. Because that would have led to some real dystopia between its product line. So it was like, well, we're not going to do just a 13, which means, hey, we're no longer, it would give them that problem.
Right.
So the presence of 13 necessitated needing to launch a new 11, which is completely fine. Do you need the M2? Probably not. We have much like I've said for a lot of AI, and we said this about 5G and just about every other piece of tech over the last 5 years, show me the killer use case.
Right.
But I said this on social. I have a strong suspicion that the 13-inch Air is going to be their sleeper hit of tablet products. Because
the price is right.
The price is right. The positioning of it, it's like and what they've done is they're effectively going after S9, S9 Plus in the same way.
Right.
But they're undercutting them and those are the Tab S9, the Galaxy ones. They're undercutting them in terms of price. And in a way, this is pretty, I really like the look of the 13-inch Air. I mean, for no other reason than I can see myself going, right, my mum, I'm going to give you the best example. My mum knows how to use an iPad, she used to be a receptionist before she married my dad, years ago, like 45 plus years ago. And she's run businesses and uses a computer but she still feels uncomfortable with navigating Windows, doesn't want to switch to Mac OS.
Yeah.
What it's going to mean for her is she can have a laptop size thing, her Air, like the Air. And she has an 11-inch M1, by the way, which I bought her. So just for context.
Yeah.
And she can stick a Magic Keyboard on it. She can have a pencil, and she can have a laptop-like experience. It's not going to ever replace it, but it's good enough.
No, I get all that. I'm actually just surprised they make a 13. Like, to me, 13 for a tablet seems so huge. And I know, of course, you got to compete with Samsung, who's done it first. I think they did it first.
I think the flip is true. I actually am surprised more people don't do 13-inch tablets, because if you're going from a people, you can buy an Air, buy a Mini, and that's what, 8.9, 7.9, I forget, 6.9, 5. One of those.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole different story. Like, you might as well get a folding phone at that point.
Yeah, but what it allows
Sorry.
people to do is have that bridge to something that has enough screen real estate to do multitasking or anything
Yeah.
you might want to do with a computer.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. I ordered the 11 Pro, and I remember with the last generation, I went from 12.9 to 11 to 12.9, and I'm already regretting going 11 Pro, because even though it's going to be lovely and light and stuff, and I know Jaime loves his 11-inch, I'm kind of like, well, the idea of a 13 just feels more like computer tablet like.
See, I think I'm with Jaime on this one. Like anything, like honestly, if they made a MacBook Air right now, like a 12-inch or 11 with a like very little bezel, like they did with the original MacBook Retina that was
12,
only one
yeah.
port, that's what I'm waiting for. Like this M2 I'm using right now, awesome, but I want even smaller and lighter, and that's why I don't ever especially for a tablet, I can't see myself doing 13. But what do I know? I'm not an iPad user, so whatever, it's all good.
I look, I love the 12.9 for size, for media.
Right.
And key productivity. If you're gonna split screen anything, there's just so much more usable real estate.
iPad doesn't do multitasking really. Like that's where you need a Samsung tablet or something. Right?
This is true. It's very useless at anything resembling productivity.
That's what I'm saying. Like 11. Anyway, let's talk about what's changed. I mean, there's some cool colors. I don't know what it is with Apple and muted colors right now. Like I think the Air would be the perfect candidate for brighter colors, although I suppose they have the regular iPad for that. But look, the point is that, like, I totally agree that if you're going to make an Air today, you should have an M2 chip in it. But, my premise was like, if you have an M1 Air right now, you probably want to wait for another 3 years or something. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no reason to upgrade. I think the Air right now as it exists is for somebody who has maybe the original Air from 2013. Or like 10-year-old Air, or like if it's
original Air upgrading from a previous generation.
Exactly.
I did the best iPads for Forbes, ironically 2 weeks ago. Yeah,
I saw that. Yeah. That's a great story. It's actually funny that you did it 2 weeks ago. I was like, really? You didn't want to wait another 2 weeks? That would have been kind of perfect.
It wasn't up to me, and I told him, hey, I'm ready to pitch you for
right.
I'll do the update. I sent him this. I was like, hey, so that article I wrote 2 weeks ago might be a little out of date. And I was like, I feel sorry for it. But the reality is, the Air is fascinating because I think it's probably the tablet for everybody. Everyone's got that.
Well, it's like the MacBook Air. It's the Mac for everybody. Like that's the reality, right?
That's the one that is the base. That's the one that everything has to be judged further from. Like, okay, you want a Pro? Well, what does it have over an Air? You want the regular, where it's price and stuff like that. Although stuff like that, but the Air is what we can also almost consider the anchoring point.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So let's talk about the Pro, because look, the Air exists and it's great. Nice new colors, M2. You can't go wrong. There's a bigger size. Win. That's the one to aim for if your budget is, reasonable.
A budget.
Because honestly, look, again, I get it. I look at the specs, this M4. I look at this dual layer OLED, tandem OLED display, and I'm like, the brightness, that it allows. It's like, I get this is probably the most advanced piece of hardware that Apple makes today, short of the iPhone, right? Like, I think that
short of the Vision Pro.
Oh, short of the Vision Pro. Yeah, I think this is remarkable. But when I look at the pricing, especially when you start like going nuts, right? Like if you put a 1 terabyte, 16 gigabyte RAM, you buy the keyboard, which is gorgeous. I'm so glad that they're putting Bridge out of business. I'm sorry for Bridge, but I'm just saying, like, this is so funny, Apple, so typical Apple, that they took the keyboard deck and trackpad from a MacBook and put it in a case, which is exactly what we've been asking all along, and Bridge has been delivering for a decade, right? Like, so you get that new Pencil Pro with, the haptic feedback and the ability to rotate and the gyro in it. Like, all of this is fantastic, but you put it side by side with a MacBook Pro and it's like $2,377 versus $2,399 or something, right? And I'm like, I get it to some extent. If you are like an illustrator, like, I get that, like, spend that money, it's your job. But I'm just saying, like, how do you feel about the fact that an iPad Pro can now play price-wise in the same territory as a MacBook Pro. That's the first time, right? We have never gone that high, have we?
No, we have.
Okay.
We've gotten to the point before where you have to think hard about which one you want. So I'll give you the context of, let's say we take the same base $1,000 price point, except I think the $1,000 on the previous gen, correct me if I'm wrong, was for the base for the 12.9.
I don't follow iPads. I'll take your word for it. Correct us, guys, if we're wrong.
I'm going to guess, let's just say it was, yeah. If we're wrong, my bad. Come at me on one of the social handles and I'll be like, cool, my bad. But assuming the $1,000, I'd say that the actual delta here, because I know they haven't changed the price of the Apple Pencil, the new one, and we'll come to that in a minute because that's a whole other kettle of fish. And I know they haven't changed the price of the Magic Keyboard, except I love the fact that it's apparently nowhere near as thick, bulky, and thick with multiple C's as it was in the last generation. But you could always get up there. Once you started adding cellular, because I had a cellular 12.9 and all of this, you were always looking at 16, 17, 18, which firmly puts it in the cheaper MacBook Pro range.
I totally understood that it was in the MacBook Air territory, but now we're over 2,000.
No, in the cheaper Pro, but now it's in
I'm just like, we're over 2,000, which is kind of amazing. And I get it. When I look at the tech, as a nerd, I get it. Like I look at it, I'm like, holy shit, this is full of technology, right? And so at the same time, I'm like, this is kind of crazy to me. It's also crazy to me that this is the first iPad that is launching a new chip for Apple. Like, and okay, like it just feels like the M3 came out 6 months ago. Like I feel, Ben Sin wrote this in, I think on one of the social recently, like the last 2 days, that it's like the Reno series from Oppo, where they come out with a new phone every 6 months. Like the Reno series, for those of you who don't know, is the poster child, along with the Vivo V series, of a phone every 6 months. It's like I can't keep track. At one point, I stopped requesting review units.
I think they're the poster child of, hey, I just bought this and it's already out of date.
Like, holy crap, M4 already. So now, preamble here, rewinding a bit. Like, I think we have clearly an AI play coming at Worldwide Developer Conference. It's obvious, right? Apple's no longer distracted by the car. AI is a big part of it, but they want to keep it private and secure and useful and working. And Siri's been a disaster, let's face it, for years. This is hopefully the opportunity that we see where they can leverage AI in a meaningful way for Apple customers. And I think we're going to see that. Now, to do that right, you can probably do that on an iPhone 15 Pro Max. It probably has enough, AI NPU power to do it. But on the existing iPads, it was kind of getting a little difficult. So I think that the M2 and then the M4 especially are going to bring that. And then we're probably going to see some M4 announcements, maybe a Mac Mini, right? Or something like that. Because I don't think it's going to be too long before we get MacBooks with M4, whether it's an Air or a Pro.
I think this whole year we will see everything
go to AI M4
in the flagship. Go to AI capabilities. So expect your MacBook Pros. There'll be new studios, maybe a new Mac Pro, whatever they've got to do to ensure that not only does the hardware natively support the AI. But remember, Apple's entire business model relies on third parties building experiences.
Oh, yeah.
And to build experiences, you're going to likely need a lot of hardware built into their Macs that can support AI and AI rendering, AI LMs, and the whole shebang. And every other use case under the sun, and anywhere they can throw the word AI in. Let's have a little bet on, I reckon at least we'll hear AI at least 100 times in WWDC, those words.
Oh, yeah.
No, sorry, AI 100 times at I.O. next week, minimum.
Oh, AI next week. That's a whole different story, yeah. But in parallel to Apple, Google's obviously going to do something. We know that.
Yeah.
The Tensor chip right now across the entire lineup of phones, except for maybe the Fold, is supporting much better NPU processing.
So that's also why I, complete tangent for a second, I reckon we'll see a Pixel Fold 2 or Pixel Fold 2 somewhat relevant announcements next week, because otherwise they're going to completely destroy their thing.
I don't think so. I think that everything I've heard so far says that the Pixel Fold next gen is going to be called the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, first of all, which is terrible, because there's also going to be a Pixel 9 Pro XL, separate from the Pixel 9 Pro. There's going to be 4 phones, I think, in the fall. And I think those are going to be the new G4, and they're going to wait because you remember the Pixel Fold, as we know it today, was a little late in launch, and this is why it's got a G2. Is they were struggling a little bit with getting it in mass production. I think that's what we got at I/O. I/O is really the A phone, and this year they preempted that, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Let's get back to the iPads though, because look, like I am amazed that here we have a device from Apple that is, in my opinion, and this is, I'm biased, I know, it's not a full computer and not a full OS. And it's mostly because of the software. The hardware is 100% there, there's no doubt. And officially, you add a keyboard and a pen to it and you get like a Surface kind of experience. But you don't, because you don't have a heavyweight OS. And it's not true, because iPad OS at the core is Mac OS underneath, right? It's just, the problem is that Apple creates this division of the touch experience and then the normal traditional desktop computer paradigm.
Well, I'm hopeful.
I want that to change.
That we'll finally see iPad OS become something resembling a pro experience at WWDC.
I hope so.
But it's Apple.
But I want to be able to do the things on an iPad that I can do on a Mac. Open a shell, SSH somewhere, play around with GCC, the compiler, for, like just the stuff that every Unix computer can do, Linux or Mac OS. It's like, it's basic stuff. You can do that on Android because it's Linux based. Like, my point is, like, it's artificially restricted. And I understand that they're trying to delineate the two, but clearly the hardware doesn't delineate the two. I mean, it does, because it's touchscrong versus not.
I think that's exactly it. I think the goal has to be...
But processing power-wise, it doesn't delineate.
I think they're long term. If they make both near identical in terms of feature set, there'll be little things you can do on Mac that you can't do on iPad,
right,
and little things that you do on iPad that are tailored
and that's
to
very
the touch experience. And then you go, do you want a touch experience or a non-touch experience? But really what Apple wants to go is, hey, you need to buy the MacBook to do everything, but you probably have enough edge cases where you should also spend a bunch of money on the iPad. Treat it like a Wacom tablet until you need that portability. And they win. And that's probably their goal is, hey, how do we just make more money?
I mean, look, I am not naive. Apple is all about selling hardware first and then services still second, in my opinion. And it's fair. And I love their hardware. Like, I'm very excited about this piece of hardware. I can't wait to go to an Apple store to play with it. Will I buy one? Absolutely not. But
I can't wait.
Because I have no use case and I'm very satisfied with my MacBook. If there was an M4 MacBook right now that was maybe a slightly smaller form factor, I would be lining up in the streets for it. But I respect people who are like, I've been using an iPad forever. Like Harry McCracken has been writing all of his articles as a journalist on iPad since, I think, iPad Gen 2. Like, he's not going to go back. Like, he's not going to do a MacBook.
I remember when Apple first, I'm going to go way back for a hot minute. I remember Apple launched their first iPad.
Yeah.
This is when I lived, before I even moved to the States. And for context, everyone, I'm literally just in the UK visiting for a little while. So the idea was I was running my own WordPress site. I had a team and I was like, I got tired of all this nonsense of having to explain stuff. So I was like, okay, on my way to work and back from my day job selling phones, I'd pull out my iPad on the train. Just using the on-screen keyboard, I wrote a 45-page manual to WordPress and got home and then I added stuff.
I have written entire articles, 1,000 words on a folding phone on an airplane, okay?
Same.
You don't have to convince me.
No, I do the same thing now. But what I will say is there is a lot of value, and there are times when I do not like using my folding phone I just need bigger real estate on a plane. And that's where I'm going to whip out the iPad Pro and start typing away on that, because it's that hybrid between the biggest phone experience and the smallest and the smallest computer experience in a way that does, I guess, enough for people. That said, the iPad Pro is clearly not really, I mean, it's kind of for us, but we're not its ideal target. Ideal target are those creators. And I'll tell you what, the stuff 100%. It's created this year makes me go, oh wow, we need, I don't think I'm ever gonna, I know you use phones to record video, and I'm like, I think I've reached a point where all I need is an iPhone and an iPad and I'm good.
Oh, I believe it. And when I saw even I think iPad Gen 2, like, when I saw what they could do with music tools, like, music recording and composition tools, like even GarageBand,
Yeah.
which is kind of like the iMovie of the professional tool set, right? Because it's usable by professionals. On a pinch, you can use it, does the basics. It's so impressive, and it's been around for over a decade, right? Like, I know the potential, I get it, and that's why I don't want to, like, like, basically, I don't want to just be negative about the iPad because it's not my thing, but I get why it's somebody else's thing, right? I don't want to yuck your yum, iPad people, basically. But the thing is, I think, I feel like Apple has really shown us that they can make even better hardware for the MacBook with this iPad. And that's why I'm like, you need to do something about that. Like, why couldn't my MacBook have a camera on the back? That's like a proper camera. Why does it only have to have this tiny little camera right here? Like, what I'm saying? There are little things.
Well, because they want you to buy an iPhone and plug the Belkin clip in.
I know. And it's exactly my point. Like, I get the fact that they want you to buy into the ecosystem. And that's totally fair. Speaking of, actually, I think that cameras, it's missing the ultra wide now, which apparently some people are butthurt about, and I can understand that. But okay, hear me out for a second, folks. Like, again, playing into the Apple ecosystem universe here, you do not use an iPad to take photos, right? Right? Like, I mean, you're not in your right mind if you use like an iPad to take photos. Like a document you need to scan, 100%. I'm on board. You need to take a picture of, like, you're walking through the factory and something's broken. You're taking notes of the iPad. You need to take a photo. Yes. But do you need two cameras for that? No. You have an iPhone, right? You bought an iPhone 15 Pro Max. It's in your pocket, right? And it's going to iCloud, right?
Do you know why? Okay, all right. I got to jump in and say something. Sorry. Do you know why people are very hurt by this?
I'm just making fun.
No, I'm going to go a step further. Folks, do not be like I'm not going to say who, but members of my family, both alive and rest in peace, very close members of my family, who believed that tablets, because they had a bigger screen,
had a better camera.
Oh my God, ultra wide with a camera on a tablet. I'm just grateful that we're never going to see someone holding up an iPad Pro in the middle of a wedding trying to take a photo. And if they didn't have an iPad Pro left because I may have picked it up and used it as a Frisbee.
Especially a 13.
Jesus Christ. And the thing is, it would be like, you have to, we've all been there, but it makes sense. That said, I'm willing to bet one of the reasons they removed that, yes, it forces people to buy an iPhone, but let's go into the Final Cut Pro and Final Cut Pro camera specifically portion.
Yeah.
The ultra wide, nobody, not a single company other than, and I think Oppo Find X7 Ultra might be one of the only phones I know that is I've tested that actually has enough, like, there's not a massive difference between the two. The ultra wide is never going to be good enough, both in your aperture and all of that. And if you're positioning this as, hey, this is built for creators, this is built to make movies on, which is what the multicam and Final Cut Pro is.
Yeah, this stuff is really cool.
And I'm honestly like blown away and can't wait to rig up 6 iPhones to do this. Yeah, just mostly for something and giggles.
Hi, my name is Nirav. I'd like to buy 6 iPhones right now, please.
Would you like help setting up? No. Just hold on to the boxes in case I lose them. I'll be back to return in 1 hour. Why? I'm just testing out Final Cut Pro multicam. Are you serious, sir? Yes, because then I'll go get someone to buy them via the refurb.
I have literally returned iPhones that I've reviewed and told them I reviewed them and I'm returning them, and they have not batted an eye. This is what I love about the Apple
I did this
Store.
with an iMac, and they were
they are just totally cool.
So there's a whole other thing here, but like, the reality is, by only giving one camera, they can make sure that camera is more than good enough. Because you'll notice that they didn't, and this is one of the things that stuck out at me, they didn't go, oh, this is, it's for syncing all your iPhone cameras. They were like, no, you can do 4 live cams, 3 iPhone plus 1 iPad. And they've positioned this as, hey, this is the camera on the iPad Pro is clearly going to be good enough to take professional looking video.
It's been good enough for years now, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
the camera on the iPad has been not iPhone great, but it's been pretty damn great for a long time.
I wonder how good it is, how good this one is. We won't know till the reviews come out, but my bet is that this might be an upgraded camera, or at least in the way that it's good enough to be a fourth camera in a movie. Otherwise, they wouldn't have positioned Final Cut Pro like that.
So, Nirav, this is your next article. I tested the iPad Pro camera, and it's better than, a Pixel 8a.
Article?
Something.
No. I'm totally going to be an X or LinkedIn thread.
Did you hear what I said?
Yeah, I
better
did.
than the Pixel 8a. No, probably not. But the point is, like, it'd be a really fun comparison, like to take a decent smartphone and like the iPad and go like, and also you'd piss off a lot of people who'd be like, what do you mean iPad photography? Anyway,
15 ways the iPad has changed my life. Click into the thread. Number 1. It hasn't. I just wrote this and I wrote this on the iPad, and you engaged, and now I made $0.00001. Thank you.
It's also really thin, and a lot of people are like, I don't need a thinner iPad. Why is the battery life not better? And I'm like, look, listen. It's actually because with the Folio, with that really new keyboard that's really awesome, the whole thing is about the same thickness as a MacBook. And I think that, to me, is the killer app here. Like, I feel like the iPads have always been so chunky with a keyboard on them, and the keyboard has always sucked so much balls. I'm sorry, there's not a single iPad keyboard I've tried that does match my MacBook. And now it does. And finally...
So you are right. There is everyone who's saying, I don't need it to be thinner, please take your old iPad, look at it like this, and just bash yourself repeatedly over the head. Because people like you are why good things don't exist. And I'll tell you why. Have you ever used an iPad in bed?
It's heavy.
That thing hitting your face is like being smacked around the face with an iron, I presume.
Now you're going to get your face sliced because it's so thin.
No, but now it'll just be like getting slapped with a wet fish instead of, being hit with a brick.
True.
But the reality is, I've given my mum an iPad Pro with a Magic Keyboard before, and she's literally gone, it is far too heavy for me. Yeah. Is she the target market? No. But I can tell you that when my mum decides that she wants a new iPad, right now, if I had to pick right now, even though it's all overkill, I would buy her an iPad Pro with a Magic Keyboard, and I'll tell you why. Thin, light, more than good enough for everything she's going to want to do in terms of a computer, detachable, so she can have something incredibly light. There's a lot of people just in my family alone who find these products too heavy. Hell, you know what? I don't know where my old Magic Keyboard is, because it's in somewhere, because it was too heavy to carry.
Yeah.
And I've got neck issues, and I'm more than capable of carrying 50 pounds or whatever on my neck,
Yeah.
Like, it makes a difference.
I get it.
So going thin, going light, this new Magic Keyboard, I'm ridiculously excited and also crying at the cost of it. Crying.
Oh my God.
Repeatedly.
It is crazy. And that's why I'm saying, like, I realize that it's a tool. You buy it because it's your work or it's your main computer, right? Let's face it, right? So I get it. But I mean, it is getting a little ridiculous. One last thing I want to talk about before we move to the Pixel is that ad, which has been very controversial. What's your take on it? The ad where the hydraulic press destroys a whole bunch of creative tools and then eventually opens up and you have the iPad Pro in there.
I saw it when we all saw it. My instant reaction was, oh boy, Apple's in trouble.
Okay, I'm not the only one because I feel like maybe I'm being too sensitive or something, but look, it's read the room. It's not the right time. Like, there was a time when that ad would have flown, right? But right now, when you have so many creative people who are afraid about their future because of AI, and I know this did not mention AI or anything, right? Also, this is very violent. I felt like very destructive. So yeah, you've seen the ad where they reverse it. I think that works a lot better. But even better, I think, like having a giant magnet where all these things would have gone shlunk, and like stuck to the magnet. I know a guitar is generally not very magnetic, but by the point that would have flown better because I feel like it's just a little off kilter for Apple. It's very provocative. You'll remember the ad, but Apple doesn't play on provocative to that extent, right?
I think so. I said, Apple's in trouble. Let me caveat for a second.
Yeah.
My second thought was, I actually liked it. I think it told a story. Yes, you're going to remember it. And I know people are going to be, oh my God, this and the other. And I get why people, and said this in a giant Twitter thread earlier. I know why people are like, oh my God, this ad is very violent. Oh my God, it's all of these things, yada, 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 yada. Not detracting from that at
It's
all.
beautifully done. Like, it's very beautifully done.
What it does say, it's a perfect way of saying, excluding the violence, it's a great way of saying, this is everything it can do. This is all in one device.
Yeah.
And it's super thin, super light, etc. And there's ways that you could have tweaked it. But what's really fascinating about it is, yes, the iPad can do all of those things. It doesn't mean that it's going to replace you. It doesn't mean that. What it means is it's democratizing access to those things. Yes, you're a professional guitar player. You're a guitar player. Amazing. Congratulations. You spent a lot of time doing that, learning a craft. That doesn't mean that nobody else should be able to learn a guitar without putting the same amount of work in. Technology will always be judged by its impact on the world.
Right.
Something like Final Cut Pro. Imagine you're an iPhone person. Just imagine this, yeah? Like, okay, average Joe goes, you know what? I want to record. I'm going to go down a tangent for a second because it's something I'm going to write about once I have my iPad Pro. But I think you'll agree with me here. Let's take just video editors or video people to be able to create the memories of, say, you've got a parent or you've got a couple of family members who are in the later stages of their lives, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And you want to record them for posterity. So imagine being able to put together a movie that features, the family behind an iPhone. Because imagine a hospital scene. The person's in their you've got an iPhone. They're using an iPhone, and that's what they're using. Kind of, you've set up so that you're filming them.
Right.
But then you also want to record all the rest of the family. You don't need expensive recording equipment.
No,
you don't
I get
need
all that.
multiple cameras. So I think technology at its most impactful has to democratize, has to make it easier for people to do things that they can never do. And people being upset by this are rightfully upset because you can never say someone isn't, because obviously, it brings up certain feelings of destruction and things like that. But you look at it from the perspective of people like, this is actually going to mean that more people can unleash the creativity inside them without the realm of, oh my God, we're stopped by not having a guitar, by not having this, by not having expensive equipment.
Right.
And that's the purpose of Apple from day one.
And you know what? I'm totally on board with that message, democratizing technology. But I think that as somebody who loves technology and loves, the fact that we can have a device in our hand connected to the internet, that's a computer, MP3 player, video recorder, camera, really good camera now, all these other things, communicator, phone, all that. It's cool. But I feel like it's just the execution, right? And I think we can't give them a pass on the execution. And that's my only thing.
No,
right?
no. I think it was overtly violent.
And I think that's why the backwards version...
Very unlike Apple, and someone got fired this morning for it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Maybe, I don't know. The backwards version of it is just an example how all you had to do was flip a switch, like literally creatively. And I think... that seems odd to me that nobody at Apple was like, wait a second, guys, wait a minute. Wait.
Maybe.
Right?
Devil's advocate for a second. Maybe this was intentional.
Maybe it was.
Because here's the thing.
Maybe it was. They wanted to see how far they could push
How
it.
many other things have been announced? And here's your lovely, because I love tying up segues for you, Miriam. How many other things have been announced in the 24 hours? And the reality is that over 24 hours later, all people are still talking about is an Apple commercial.
Yeah.
So from their perspective of being marketing and doing marketing, they got people talking.
Right.
And it told a story. Could it have been less violent? Absolutely.
Apple doesn't need to get people talking. Like, their products are legendary.
Yes. But I'm going to throw something out there.
You think the iPad sales were down maybe a bit and they were a little worried?
No, I actually think it's very easy for I know that I would talk to family members this morning, and very few of them could tell me anything about the Apple event, except all of them had seen the commercial. These are not techie people.
Right.
It created what you can only consider a viral moment in a way that a traditional Apple, even an iPhone announcement, is probably the only thing that comes close. I'd bet more people have seen this commercial than might see coverage around an iPhone.
Yeah, of course. I mean, in that sense,
moment.
it worked. It did. I just wish I'd created a moment in a different way, in a more palatable, more read the room kind of way, especially in this day and age, right? Like where things
they did not read the room,
and that's basically my concern.
Everyone is valid that, hey, we are very concerned about the impact of AI technology and things like that, even though this was technically nothing to do with AI. But 5 seconds later, they were talking very much about, hey, we can create all of these things that you might have had to otherwise go and buy from somebody. So I get it. And talking of other things,
let's move to the Pixel 8a, because look, let's just quickly give a summary for people. This is the Cliff's Note version. Okay, Pixel 8a is a Pixel 7a with a brighter display that runs at 120 hertz versus 90, has a new G3 chip instead of the G2, has the exact same cameras, has a tiny, slightly little bigger battery, and comes in really cool colors and has very, very rounded edges and a bit more bezel, which is a bit controversial. I think I didn't forget anything, right? That's basically it.
Sure.
Okay. So
it captured 5 minutes of my attention.
Yeah, of course. But here's the thing about the 8A and the 7A before it. I bought a 7A for my mom after MWC. She's never been happier. And I think this is what I love about the Pixel A series. They are understated. They fly below the radar. We don't spend more than 5 minutes on them. But every single person who actually uses one, even ourselves, if we're going to be honest with ourselves, if my Pixel 8 Pro died tomorrow, I would be in my drawer bin and I'd find my 7A or the 8A that's coming soon. And I'd probably set that up with my SIM because you know what? It'll be 98% of the experience of my Pixel 8 Pro for half the price. And that's the reality of it. Yeah, the telephoto's gone, but the Super Res zoom goes a long way. And yeah, the screen is slightly smaller, but it's the same chip. Everything is the same. It's amazing. It's an amazing phone.
Okay, not controversial. Everyone knows I have an intense dislike of Pixel phones. I think they objectively suck, but that's at the high end. I don't think Google does anywhere near enough to deserve $1,000 from me. Like the way it approaches UX and things like that.
I don't pay for my phones.
Well, neither do I, but they don't do anywhere near enough to warrant my time and usefulness. Like they intentionally dumb it down. They're trying to be an Apple, but that all changes when you offer 98% of the experience at half the bloody price, to the point where
that's what I'm saying.
Google, don't put 57 models of the Pixel 9 out because you don't need to.
I'm worried about that. I am also worried about that. Yes.
What they haven't figured out about marketing is they're trying to play an Apple game. The biggest issue they have is they're not Apple. They're not Samsung. Samsung doesn't launch 4 phones at once.
Right.
The fact Google does that.
No, they do. The S24 series is almost 4 phones at once.
It's 3.
I mean, there's the FE eventually, so.
Eventually. You think about this. There will be 5 in total phones in the Pixel 9 series if they launch an 8 next
that's
year.
the rumors. We don't know yet. Maybe they're going to listen to reason. We do not need a Pixel 9 Pro non-XL. I'm sorry, folks.
What is it? Pixel 9, Pixel 9 Pro, Pixel 9 Pro XL,
which is the
Pixel
current
9 Pro
then,
XL Fold Plus.
No, there's no XL
Magenta edition.
Yeah, you got it. But look, here's what I want to say. Like, to rebuke your argument a little bit, I think the biggest problem Google has is not that trying to be Apple. The biggest they are, but that's they're not doing a good job. So that's not even an argument. The biggest problem Google has at the high end, the reason why my Pixel 8 Pro kind of sucks in the great scheme of things, and I understand how you feel about spending $1,000 on it, I certainly wouldn't want to spend my own $1,000 on it, is because of the chip. That is the biggest problem. The rest of the hardware is absolutely delightful and solid, and the software, I still think, is the best Android software there is. And I know you're a Samsung guy.
That's an hour there, Miriam. I would debate you anytime, any place on why.
I know we can disagree, but
the best Android software anywhere right now, OnePlus.
Ooh, yeah, except they don't have all the call features that I need on my Pixel, like the call screening, the hold for me, all that stuff is critical to me as a journalist. And the Pixel voice transcription. Thank you. But look, that could be added. Look, I love OnePlus's Oxygen OS, and in fact, ColorOS is not too far behind, and Realme UI as well. Here's the thing, though. I think the point I'm trying to make is it's the chip. I'm so sick and tired of the G chips. Like at $499, the G3 is absolutely delightful. But at $1,000, F you, Google, because that is not what I'm paying for.
Do you trust? Here's the thing. I don't think any of us, and people turn to us because we ultimately influence a lot of people in our decisions, in our viewpoints and things like that.
For sure.
Do I trust, knowing what's come before, that the G4 is going to be any better than anything else? It might be better on paper.
Wait, we already know it's not. We already know it's not. Like, we know from the rumors that it's...
Do I trust that Google will ever make a chip that's good enough? Because even if it does on paper, this company, I feel like they made some smart decisions with YouTube, with search and stuff that made them all the money they had. And then it's just a whole level of incompetency ever since, because they can't seem to get it right. And when they do something right, they introduce 700 problems with it and they don't care.
Look, we could have an entire podcast on the Pixels alone and Google, but what I'm trying to say is that I'm very excited that they've upgraded the 8A a little bit. The price hasn't changed. It's a great phone for those who want a mid-range phone that doesn't suck, that's close to flagship and experience. And you could argue forever about that. For me, here's the thing. I really feel like I've been taken hostage by Google because of the software features that I love on my Pixel. Like, the hardware is really nice except for the chip. Ideally, what I want is the Xiaomi 14 Ultra that I'm using right now. That is one of the most delightful phones I've ever used in my entire life. I want that without the sucky software that is HyperOS. I want that with a OnePlus OS on it. And, I thought the Oppo might be that, the Find X7 Ultra, but the reality is, because it's a China market phone and it doesn't have the variable aperture on that main sensor, I might as well get a OnePlus 12 or OnePlus Open, and I'm just as happy. So here's my like going back to, like kind of mixing all this into a blender. Well, guess what? OnePlus Open should be a phone.
Yeah, no, 1,000%. 4 days ago, I switched back to this and I've been enjoying it, but the Open's the winner.
Yeah, that's why right now I carry an Open and a Pixel 8 Pro all the time. And then, of course, I have an iPhone and a Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra in my bag because I have to. And honestly, right, the S24 Ultra has been my camera for taking car photos because of the versatility of the lenses. And now I'm using the Xiaomi because I can put a polarizer on the Xiaomi with the camera kit. So the polarizer is like really what you need for car pictures outdoors because you don't get the reflections on the car paint. And it's just a game changer, So maybe it's time for me to retire the Samsung, which is kind of insane because I never thought for a million years that I would not have a Samsung on me at all times.
Hey, I'll give you a tip. It's a hot tip.
Oh, yeah?
Retire the Pixel.
No, I cannot. I'm a hostage. My captors treat me well. Let's move on to the news.
Stockholm Syndrome for the win.
Total Stockholm Syndrome. I admit it. And that's why you'll be happy to know that I've been doing more and more with my OnePlus Open. And I'm really looking forward to Open 2, whatever it's going to be called, especially if they add wireless charging, which is the only big thing that's missing. Here's a thing that's really interesting. I want folks to understand this. And Nirav, I don't know if you know this. This is kind of fascinating to me. The Xiaomi 14 Ultra has a camera pod that's half the thickness of the phone, just like the Oppo, right? It's a monster. It's a thicker, bigger camera bump than you have on the OnePlus Open. And guess what? I lie it flat on my Tesla Model 3's wireless charger, and it charges like a champ. In fact, it charges better than my Pixel does in a case. It's possible to make a wireless charging coil that works with a tiny gap in between it. Like, how is it that, like, honestly, no. Look,
I'm sorry. I have to laugh because as soon as you said wireless charging, I was like, here we go. We've been here before.
Look, no, but what I'm surprised about, like, Nirav, I'm really honestly surprised. Like, I have, so far, when big camera bumps existed on phones, wireless charging was basically almost unusable. You had to find a pad where it would sit underneath, right? But
Yep.
with Xiaomi, they fixed that. So like it's possible. Like it's really surprising to me. Anyhow, let's move on to the news. There's a bunch of interesting things happening. MediaTek just launched a new Dimensity 9300 Plus very quietly. And really, I'll try to get Finbar on the show to talk about it, but the gist of it is it's a clock boost, right? Faster gigahertz and faster on-device AI processing, which obviously is going to be very helpful. I'll link to my friends at Hot Hardware who are like the experts at taking apart chip news.
Well, I was actually in Arizona
Yeah.
with them last week.
Did they
and
give you some more details?
Not a huge amount. Everything you see there is kind of like
It seems very stealthy, this launch. Usually they're a bit more rah-rah-rah about their new chips. How do you feel about this?
Yeah, so I think what's interesting is obviously we'll eventually see a 94, etc.
Of
So
course,
this
in
is
the
a
fall.
mid-step. But what's funny is with this push for AI, I think this is all going to tie into. This is one of the chips that will probably be that will be necessary for them to achieve their longer term goals in terms of, hey, we're pushing to put 50% of devices to have on device AI and stuff like that over the coming years. Something like the 9300 Plus is clearly designed for, they've obviously had a demand for it, but it's very much like the Snapdragon Plus in that this is going to be the sleeper previous generation device, like chip that a lot of devices over the next 12, 18 months run on. So because it has all the AI capabilities, but it's still real flagship, it still has real capability.
Yeah. I get it. Let's see how it pans out. Maybe the new Vivo X100S series that's rumored is going to have one of these. We'll see how it goes. But the next news is about the Sony Xperia 1 Mark VI, a darling of a phone amongst the community. Who doesn't like an Xperia among us? It's not really the phone I would recommend.
Oh, I love my Xperia 1.5.
But honestly, such a great phone, right?
I love my Xperia 1.5 because
go.
I've used it as a viewfinder for my camera
Right.
so many times.
Yeah.
And this thing is like a creator's bloody dream.
100%. So here are some of the new things on this phone. Like, first of all, they're moving away from the 21:9 aspect ratio. So it's going to be a bit more mainstream in its shape, a little wider and maybe not as tall. I don't know. It's 19 point something by 9. So it's the standard aspect ratio on most modern phones.
19.5, yeah.
Yeah, but basically Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, of course, same ultra wide and main camera it looks like, but it has a slightly further reach on the telephoto from what I understand, which is quite nice. So, a slight upgrade on the camera front. Of course, the software I think is going to be significantly better because I have actually noticed that the 8 Gen 3 phones really do seem to crank up better images in general.
1,000%.
Despite some of the sensors not changing at all on some phones.
No, it's the ISP underneath. That's improving.
And other than that,
that's just improving it.
We're still getting, all the goodness. Headphone jack. Oh my God, there's still a headphone jack. So good. I'm sorry. That's kind of a thing for me. I don't know about you, but yeah.
I mean, I don't really care about the headphone jack, but again, like it's super useful. This, the Xperia 1V isn't right for 90% of the world. It's not.
No.
But for the 10% who are creators or in that
that's
space,
what I'm saying.
It's incredible.
Yeah. And then I love that there's a platinum silver color option that looks really different than the monolith black 2001 A Space Odyssey theme they've been going on with for a while. Also, a slightly brighter screen too, which has always been a bit of an issue on the OLEDs of the Xperias, in my opinion.
Well, it's fascinating. Again, I've shot outdoors using the Xperia 1.5 as a camera viewfinder for me, with that and stuff. It becomes really difficult to see. What I am hoping that they've fixed, please tell me they fixed this. It's the quirk that annoys me beyond belief. If you plug an Xperia 1.5 into something like my A7S III, say, the A7S III can do 4K 60, all of this. As soon as you plug this in as a camera viewfinder, 4K 30. And there's no physical way to change that. And you're like, wait, how are you going to take away some of the best features, like even going up to, I think, 4K 120? and not allow me to use a Sony product. And why is this happening? It should be straightforward. Turns out it's not. Now someone's going to tell me it's not an update or whatever, and I'm like, cool. But I spent a lot of time trying to figure this out, and it was just it's one of those weird quirks that I hope they fix, because if you are a creator or something like that, this could be this beats buying. You can spend $500 on this tiny little Ninja Atmos, $500, $600, or buy an Xperia 1V where you get everything else on top.
I get it. All right, moving on. We've got the Honor Magic 6 RSR, the Porsche edition.
Such a good looking phone.
It's now globally available. The reason I bought it up is because, there's nothing different about the global version other than it's global. And it's an absolutely gorgeous phone. All the Porsche edition phones of the years, previously Huawei and even BlackBerry back in the day, have been really beautiful and great and unique. And Porsche design, what really got me here is that I have a soft spot for the Taycan signature color, Frozen Berry Metallic. It is like this purpley pink metallic, gorgeous color. It looks like frozen yogurt, like pink, purple. Like it's amazing. And one of the colors is that, which is like, oh man, that is such a hot looking phone, especially with that crease in the back. And we know it's like really packed with functionality and features. So also interesting that it's running an OmniVision 1-inch sensor like that. I still can't get over the fact that OmniVision makes a 1-inch sensor these days. OmniVision, which was always relegated to like third tier of imaging sensor, is finally doing some cool stuff. So, we've talked about this phone before, and, there you go. If you are in Europe, you can buy it now. It's global. What are your thoughts quickly, Nirav? I know you're a big Porsche design fan. You got a huge collection in a closet somewhere.
Yeah, I pretty much have every Porsche design phone ever made by Huawei.
Nice.
I like the look of this a lot.
It's very nice.
This is unique, different, and kind of everything that Porsche design stands for. 1,600 quid in the UK, which is, where they've announced it, versus I think 1,000. But it's probably still one of the cheapest Porsche design phones ever made.
Yeah, that is true. In the scheme of things, it's 100% true.
And if you used to spend 150 grand on a Porsche design, you're not going to worry about 1,600.
The folding phone from the what is it? The V2 Magic V2 RSR Porsche design is like crazy, like 2,500 or something.
More than that.
More than that,
I think it's like 3 grand, if I'm not mistaken.
So there you go, folks. If you have the money and you want something that really stands out, and most importantly, if you have a Taycan with matching frozen berry metallic,
just make this your car phone. You already spent $150,000. What's another? $150,000. What's another 1,600?
Yeah, why not? That's what I'm saying. All right, the last thing, well, not quite because we have Nokia, but Poco. I said I'm going to Dubai in a few days. I'm excited about it, but it's for Poco, and I assume it's for this rumor we're seeing everywhere, which is the Poco F6 Pro. Trust me, I do not know anything. They're just saying, come to Dubai, we'll fly you out. I'm like, sure. And I was like, okay, what is it about? And they're like, we can't tell you. And I'm like, okay, well, fine. Give me a ride to Dubai and I'll find out. So I think this is what we're talking about. This is a bit disappointing in a way because I feel like this is basically the Redmi K70, but I was hoping we'd get the higher end Redmi, the Redmi K70 Pro in a Poco form factor. And so that's not the case, which is like a little bummer in my opinion. I have the X6 Pro right now, and the X6 Pro is really awesome. Like I don't even know why they need a better flagship than the X6 Pro. So I'm a little puzzled by this P6 Pro.
The minute they announce this, the clock starts on the next one.
I know, but you know what? Last year's F5 Pro, I have it, and it had wireless charging, for example. It really differentiated itself a little bit from the Redmi, and it was also a little bit, kind of unique looking in design. Like it was the first time that I felt like Poco was actually like kind of trying to differentiate itself a little bit from the rest of Xiaomi. But this thing really basically just like, here's a Redmi K70 for you. And so why are you flying us to Dubai for that?
Also, I have to ask, why on earth are they putting a 2-megapixel macro in there?
Oh God, yeah, that's what because it's the mid-ranger. You see, they're calling it the Pro on the Poco line, but it's not the Pro on the Redmi line. That's what I'm trying to say.
And then the Redmi line is not the Pro of the Xiaomi line either.
Correct.
So
it's weird.
It's like the ultimate. I got nothing.
Anyway, stay tuned for a few more days. I will let you know what goes on. Nokia 3210 nostalgia. Phone from HMD. This is delightful, isn't it?
There's HMD just make me like these phones make me happy.
Me too, but HMD makes me sad. Sorry.
I mean, yeah, but do you know what? That means that they've lived up to the Nokia name.
Is that right?
They connect people, but make them sad in the process. When you're like, oh, we could do so much better. I.e., hey, HMD, don't care if you do it under your own name, but if you're listening, this looks lovely. But could you please, pretty please, with cherries on top, maybe give us a new Nokia 9? Ever give us something that had the Nokia flagship in it, or just something that was worthwhile?
This is kind of what my rant was going to be, honestly, was that I was like, okay, let's talk about this, because I feel like, we're here we are having, HMD as a brand now trying to like do their own phone branded HMD. And the problem with that is that they are even suckier than the Nokia HMD brand. For like, have you seen that series that just launched that we talked about on the podcast? Like they have like Unisoc chipsets. They're like cheaper than cheap. They're like $50, $75, $100 phones. But because they have HMD on them, they cost $20, $30, $50 more than that. But they're terrible in terms of spec. And I don't understand.
They're trying to play the TCL playbook without having a clue what they're doing.
What I don't understand is like why at some point someone at HMD was like, we are not going to make even mid-range phones anymore. Like, I understand maybe dropping out of the flagship world. They couldn't break into it. It was too hard. And there's definitely in certain markets like India and stuff, a good argument to be made for, a mid-ranger. But not even trying that. Not even trying budget at this point, because like Unisoc, it's like tablet chipsets from like the cheapest Fire tablet, basically. I don't get it. But this little thing is awesome. This is great. But
this is the same company that bought us. Wait for it. The Nokia 6310 2024 edition with shock horror, a VGA camera. That's it.
Ooh,
unless this thing is this thing costs €80.
Yeah.
The 3210 2024 edition.
Yeah.
80 bloody euros.
See,
it has a removable 1450 milliamp hour battery, which is fine, great. And they managed to update it with USB-C, great. How on earth is it acceptable to put QVGA resolution, a 2 megapixel main camera? Like, what in God's name is wrong with you?
Yeah. And Unisoc again. It's really weird. Like this, I'm happy this phone exists. I want to try it out, especially the yellow one is so cute. But I'm all like, couldn't you make something that, it's still a dumb phone that just actually cranks things up a notch in this experience, right? Like,
but it runs on the S30. Do you know what it is? It looks like they have a bunch of parts, and they're like, you know what we're going to do? We're just going to shove it and we're just going to ride the gravy train of existing Nokia phones for as long as we can until such point that we give up, run out of money, or someone comes in and goes, can you please stop making crap? We'd rather build something worthwhile ourselves.
I agree. Look, I'm with you. What I'd love to see is this phone costs $100. I know it's a lot more, but think about this for a second. Imagine if this had a really proper 5 megapixel, 8 megapixel autofocus camera with decent image processing, right? And imagine if it had I get it. It's a feature phone. You want to keep it for people who want to disconnect. So you keep the T9, you keep the small display, but maybe give us a nice OLED instead, Give us like the ability
to make an OLED in 2.4 inches. They would do. Yeah,
HMD. They can have Samsung.
No, they would do, because I'm sure there's OLED watch screens that are about that size.
They could figure it out. The bottom line is, it would be nice if they cranked up this to the price of an entry level, $100 to $125, like Poco does with their C series, which is really affordable, but really delivers a lot of value as an Android phone, right? Like, do that, but make it like form factor of a dumb phone. Don't run Android if you don't want to. That's cool, but maybe at least the ability to upload photos to some cloud service and stream music from Spotify or something. Then over 4G, then you have a freaking phone that makes sense in 2024, even if it's a dumb phone.
Otherwise, don't put the 2024 tagline inside the name, because it doesn't make sense. But
because
here's the
this
thing.
Reeks of just like nostalgia only.
This would have been the perfect phone if #killed by Google hadn't destroyed Android Go all those years ago.
Oh my God, yeah.
This is the candidate. This is what Android Go would have been the perfect thing for.
Yeah.
An updated feature phone that is basically all intents and purposes not an Android phone, but has this really streamlined thing that's $100 and sits and is perfect for anyone working in a field or someone working in, the half the world's population that isn't connected, that isn't running smart, that is still running feature phones, etc.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. What was that smartphone that, not smart, dumb phone, sorry, but they had smartphone OS that HMD launched? Remember when they redid the banana phone a few years ago?
It was running KaiOS.
That's it. KaiOS was what I was thinking of. So KaiOS seems like a logical, like it's not as heavy as Android. You can run it on lightweight chip like this Unisoc.
But there is zero reason that from the ground up, not some nonsense port and stuff, why Google shouldn't have a very lightweight version of Android that is built for the cheap, for people who run in areas that do.
You are 100% correct.
But like many things, we wonder, what the hell was Google thinking?
I think we should end on this note. What the hell was Google thinking?
What the hell were you thinking, Google?
Nirav, tell people where they can find you on the internet. Tell them all the things, all the wonderful things you're doing these days. Please.
You can come join me for a salacious conversation like this. Or not, but I'd prefer if you did. Find me at hot.tech, spelt out, so HOTDOTTECH, across pretty much all social platforms. But that's I run House of Technology, and where we discuss, technology and the way it impacts people, like we've done in here with the iPad Pro and things like that. But you can also find me at Nirav or at NiravG across most social media. Find me at hot.tech on the newsletter and on writing over at Android Police, Forbes, etc. Simple solution, type NIRAVE into Google, you'll find me.
Oh yeah, 100%. And then the newsletter is brand new, so please join, folks. It's great.
I set it up.
I'm really happy to have a newsletter. I kind of been fiddling with the idea of doing a newsletter, but then it's like more work. And right now I'm like, I don't think I can take on more.
I think it's only going to be, just on that, I think it's only going to be a daily, like a once a week thing. But it's so focused on my health and telling the health story that I've been meaning to do for 3.5 years.
100%.
For everyone who's interested in it, the first article that's up there going life after a heart attack at 33. I recommend you read it.
It's an interesting read for sure. Folks, you know where to find me on the internet. I'm at Tank Girl, TNKGRL on all the social. That's like the comic book character, Tank Girl. Just drop the vowels. You get my handle on Twitter, on Threads, on Insta, on Blue Sky. And please find me there, follow me and discuss the podcast with me and Nirav there. And then also, the podcast, lives at mobiletechpodcast.com. You can also subscribe to it on all your major podcasting platforms. If your app lets you rate or review the show, please consider doing that. It really helps. And then, of course, there's a YouTube channel with monthly videos, youtube.com/mobiletechpodcast. You'll find some unboxings and stuff. So please subscribe. You know how YouTube works. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, click the bell, comment, all that good stuff. And then there's a Patreon. If you really want to help me out, this is the way to do it. Because, this podcast takes a lot of energy and time out of my week. And I love what I'm doing. But if you can help, it really helps. So patreon.com/tankgirl. That's patreon.com/TNKGRL. And you get a video version of the podcast in advance if you sign up for the right tier. It's $5 a month. Easy. You get to watch the video a couple of days in advance. So it's pretty cool. And, as we were discussing, we didn't really show too many phones today, but, sometimes we have devices to show. Sometimes we have bloopers that we leave in there. We've done some good ones in the past.
There's some bloopers.
Oh, yeah. And then, of course, we have some extra material. Sometimes I go overtime and I leave some of the content in there for the video version. So you might get a little more. So please consider helping me out with Patreon, patreon.com/TNKGRL. And I want to thank our sponsor this week, Mint Mobile. I review a lot of phones, so I'm constantly juggling multiple devices. While that's fun, it also means I'm spending a lot of money for wireless service on multiple SIMs. Thankfully, there's Mint Mobile, and that's who I'm teaming up with for today's podcast. If you want to save money on your wireless service, switch to Mint Mobile. You've probably seen the Mint Mobile ads featuring Ryan Reynolds, but let me quickly tell you how fantastic their service is, especially for tech-savvy early adopters like us. Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for as low as $15 a month, and you don't have to sacrifice any coverage, speed, or data. They're built on the nation's largest 5G network. They keep costs low because they sell direct to you online. They cut out the retail stores and salespeople. Why should you pay more than you have to for access to the same network? In my experience testing phones, Mint Mobile delivers the same data speeds and call quality as the big three for a fraction of the cost. Switching to Mint is super easy. Thanks to their eSIMs, you can sign up and activate immediately right on your phone from the comfort of your home. No more standing around waiting in line at a big wireless store. You can keep your current devices and phone number and easily switch services. And if your phone isn't eSIM compatible, Mint will ship you a new SIM card free of charge. The whole process only takes 15 minutes, and if you get stuck, Mint has a great customer service team to get you through it. All Mint Mobile plans include unlimited nationwide talk and text, plus lightning-fast 5G and free mobile hotspot. Mint will show you how much data you use each month and recommend plans that save you money. Mint also offers a modern family plan that lets you set up a super affordable family plan with as little as 2 lines. Use my link, mintmobile.com/mobiletech, to get premium wireless starting at $15 a month. Stop paying more than you need on your wireless bill and start saving big with Mint Mobile. And Nirav, thank you so much for being my guest again.
Darling, thank you for having me. I will be honest, guys, if you haven't backed Miriam on Patreon, please do. This is one of my favorite podcasts in the world because Miriam's so fun and I love being on it.
Thanks so much, Nirav. You know I'll have you on again at some point in the future, of course. And folks, we'll have another show next week, so stay tuned for that. Until then, cheers, everybody.
Bye.
This has been the Mobile Tech Podcast with Tank Girl, proudly presented by worldpodcasts.com. You can visit us online at mobiletechpodcast.com.